Hey guys, Mike here from Eekman Knives, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about drill presses and the importance of setting them up properly, and that a quality press really does make a difference. Now I'll be honest, for fixed blades, the $100 Ryobi has been doing just fine, provided you set it up right. You'd really have to be out of whack to screw it up. Now, it's when you get into the folders like these that setup really becomes important, and a quality press will go a long way. Now, typically, a new quality press is going to cost you big bucks. Your best bet is to find an old one. Alright? 60s, 50s. I just picked this one up from a buddy of mine. It's an old Delta. He had an old wood shop, and he doesn't do the wood shop thing anymore, and he gave it to me. I gotta turn it down, so I figured I'd do a video. Now, it's not the only reason I wanted to do a video. It's because my last friction folder kicked me in the head at every turn, and I couldn't figure out what was going wrong, and why I had to keep going back in and redesigning everything to get the tolerances and the fit that I wanted. It turns out that I wasn't paying attention to my setup on the cheap drill press. Now, don't get me wrong, the cheap drill press will have some run out. When I say run out, which means the bit will spin like this, it's not, the tolerances aren't that tight, and typically that'll just give you an enlarged hole, and you'll run into other issues. Now, I'm not a machinist by any stretch, so this is just what I've experienced as a knife maker. So I upgraded to this bigger guy here, and hopefully it's a little bit better. Now, I'll show you some important things about setting up your drill press right here. Let me disconnect you and I'll walk you through it. Alright. Every drill press has, well, I don't want to say every, but the cheaper ones have a bolt on the table, because the table will tilt like this, left and right, so you can adjust angles if you have to drill on an angle. Typically for knife making, you're going to drill straight, and you want it as straight as possible, to the thousandths of an inch. Now, there is a way of tramming a drill press, but I'm not exactly sure how to do that. I do plan on looking into it, which is essentially a way to really fine-tune the table of the press compared to the quill or the spindle or whatever you want to call it. This one has a nice feature where you tighten up the bolt, and it's also got another bolt to lock it in place for the straight, you know, the level position. So here's the issue I ran in. Well, you know, before that, I'll show you a little trick on how I get them straight, and I'm sure there's some machinists out there that are going to cringe when I do this, but this is how I do it and how it worked for me. So it gets you in the ballpark, I should say. So I recess the jaws in the chuck, and what I'm going to do is set up one of these 1, 2, 3 blocks here, and I'm going to run the chuck down until I hit the 1, 2, 3 block, and then look all around it to see if I have any gaps. The flat surface is sitting flat on the 1, 2, 3 block, and these 1, 2, 3 blocks are precision ground, so that tells me there's no gaps on the bottom either. That tells me that I'm nice and level. A quick way to get set up, or at least in the ballpark. Same thing with this guy. It's got the flat, run it down, and you can see it's sitting nice and flat on that 1, 2, 3 block. The issue I ran into was this particular drill press does not have an option to lock the table in place. So what happened was the table had tilted like this, off by a couple of thousandths of an inch, and you couldn't see it with the naked eye until I took the 1, 2, 3 block and did this after the fact. And these right here are really just a reference. That's a very, very big ballpark number. So you want to get it even closer. And so here's essentially what happened. I'll hold the camera steady. The table tilted like this, and now I'm drilling holes on an angle. So you can imagine I'm drilling holes on an angle this way, I flip the thing over to drill the other side, and now I'm drilling holes on an angle this way. When you put them together, the holes don't line up. And you can't see it with the naked eye because it's only a couple of thousandths of an inch. So now I have to go back and I have to make the holes bigger and modify everything, and I finally got it to work. But I couldn't figure out for the life of me what went wrong. It turns out the table had wandered just a touch, and the drill bit wobbles too, which doesn't help. Especially if you're using a reamer, which needs to be perfectly, like this one here is a 3/16 for a pivot, and the decimal is 0.1875, I believe. Now if you have a, this is the reamer here, see it's all straight. If you have a wobbly press, what good is a reamer that's doing this? You see what I mean? If you have a cheap press, I mean. A quality press and it'll spin straight like it's supposed to. That translates into, if you get the wobble, that could translate into a loose pivot, and you want these press fit. So now when you go to tighten it up, it's going to spin in there, and if you have a really bad case of the wobbles, it could give you blade play. Obviously there's a friction fold that doesn't have blade play, but so just the whole point of this video is watch your setup, guys, and if you plan on making folders, skip over the Ryobi, maybe go up. I mean, this isn't that much better, but it's definitely better than this. But spend money on a quality drill press or a mill, and it'll make your life a whole lot easier. At the very least, pay close attention to your setup. I learned the hard way on that one, so I figured I'd share it with you guys. Alright, this is Mike from Ecom Knives, and I'll catch you on the next video.